Bonjour. It's Slip Book Reviews. Here to do yet another.
Buongiorno.
I am your co-host, as always. Ulysses S. Grant. With me is your other co-host, William Tecumseh Sherman. And we're here to do another one. How are you doing today, my comrade in arms?
Dude, I'm doing good, man. I am doing good. We're starting the year off hot.
We are
hot
indeed.
Off the press. Really?
Right hot off the press.
Dude, I'm 2 books ahead of my goal right now. I don't know how long that's going to stay, but...
I mean, you're doing a lot better than where you ended 23 at. What were you, 9 books behind?
Well, and also I do feel like I am partially cheating, because no, that was 10. But, because, I mean, I put that I finished Napoleon, like, the other day, because, I mean, I did. But, so it counts for this year. So it's like... But, like, was only, like, 2 days into this year. So,
yeah,
whatever.
That's cheating, bro. I'm telling Goodreads HQ, they'll get the message in a few years.
Dude, what sucks,
respond.
dude, is that Promise of Blood doesn't even count for me this year because I finished it
Yeah,
last year.
because you finished it right at the end of the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that leads us into today's discussion. I'm Jesse. This is Andrew. With me, as always, your lovely host. Happy to be here again. We're both just having the time of our lives. Things couldn't be better in every aspect of both of our personal lives. So we are so happy to be here to talk about. Dude, you're gonna have to cut that out because that's not true.
I'm gonna bleep just that. I'm just gonna bleep it, and no one's gonna know.
So we are reviewing the first book in the Powder Mage series by Brian McClellan. This is called Promise of Blood. Now, Promise of Blood has got 55,000 ratings on Goodreads. It came out in 2013, so we are now a little over a decade old on this one, and it's got a 4.14 out of 5 stars average rating on the old Goodreads. And yeah, we're going to talk about it. Yeah, it's older than I actually realized. So let's get into it. This, what'd you rate it, man?
So I rated it a 5 for sure. And dude, I was actually listening to Tom talk about this. He was saying, and I don't know if I agree. Like, I mean, I see why he's doing it, and it makes sense to me. But he was saying that this year he's going to rate all of his books a 5 on Goodreads because he was saying, like, obviously he was just breaking down how the 5-point scale is so, like, subjective and, like, it's tough to tell, like, what is it? Because he was saying if he rates a book a 3, then that book's, like, good to him. Like, he thinks that's a good book. Whereas, like, if I rate a book a 3, I'm like, that book's not that great. So it's, like, kind of subjective. So he said he's going to start rating all the books 5s, but then in the, like, description... or he's going to write a review for each book and then do like a more detailed review. So like that's what I did with The Way of Shadows, which I need to go back and do it for this one. But if I had to like put like a hard number like with decimal points on it for this book,
like
I mean it's like a 4 or 5. Yeah, it's
okay,
not
4 or 5 out of 5.
I don't know if it's a 9, but it's very close. If it's not a 9, it's an 8-9. But highest I would give it is like a 9-1, I think. But
yeah.
I'll have to see. I mean, dude, I loved this book, though. I love the world. I mean, we'll get into all the things we love about it. But what did you give it? I mean, I gave it a 5, though, on Goodreads.
Yeah, on Goodreads, I also gave it a 5, but I would agree with you. It's not a 10 out of 10. I would probably put it approximately in the same area. I feel like right off the top of my head, I'm giving it a 9.1. I think that's where I land.
It's strong. It's a strong
I really
book.
enjoyed it, man. Yeah, it's a really strong book. I mean, and we'll start out here with non-spoilers for those of you that haven't read it and just want to hear about it from that perspective. The first thing that pops out to me when thinking about this book and why I gave it a 5 is the pace. Like, the pace in this book was just so good to me. There was never a lull in the book. And it's a, 545 pages? Yeah. So it's not the longest, but it's not a shorty. So, I mean, there's definitely room where it could have gotten a little cumbersome, a little boring, and it didn't for me. Not at one point did I feel bored. Pretty much the end of every chapter, I'm like, okay, I have to read the next chapter. I have to keep going. So the pace was great. It picks up pretty quickly, and it just kind of doesn't stop. I would say that the writing I really, really liked. It's actually one of my favorite, like, I feel like I've got to read more of this series, obviously, and more by Brian McClellan, but it's honestly was one of my favorite writing styles of fantasy that I've ever read. And again, I haven't read near as much fantasy as you have, but I read a lot of history, and somehow felt like almost a kindred writing style to the way, because it's not at all, it doesn't at all read like a history or nonfiction book, but just, I don't know if it's like it's not like the eloquence necessarily, but just, and professional is not the right word either, but there was just something so, like, just kind of S tier about the writing to me.
Yeah.
The writing just was so good.
Yeah. I don't know enough about literature either to, like, necessarily identify what it is, but it's not like a choppy writing style. It like flows really well, but it doesn't feel, because the pace is so fast, I feel like it could, like a lot of other authors could maybe make it feel choppy, whereas at no point does it feel choppy. So, like, I guess he's just really good with transitioning the story in a way that, like, keeps it fast paced, but at the same time, I'm not like, wait, what's happening? Like, I just felt like it was in a weird way, like, easy to understand, but at the same time, like, has a very adult themes, and not like in a perverse way, but like, you know, most of the characters that you're following are like in their, like, they're not like kids, they're not teenagers. It's not like any.
Right. This is not a.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Story.
There's not. I don't even think there's even. Is Tanel? Is he? How old is he? Is he in his 20s?
Yeah, I would say he's in his 20s. Yeah,
but
he's
so
like the youngest character
one.
represented in the book. Yeah.
So you're following like these guys that are like seasoned veterans who've been through life. So that's what I liked the most about it. It's just because I think it's a big trope these days, which, I mean, it's not that I don't like it, because I mean, I've read a lot of books that I've also rated as S tier that have like the chosen one kind of trope, or the young one who's like a sewer rat kind of kid who rises through the ranks. Like, and we all like those stories, but this one is like definitely so fresh. That was the biggest thing that stuck out to me, is the magic system,
like
the world
too,
is so fresh and like so original. But at the same time, still has all those really good fantasy elements. But then, like you said, like, there's something that does feel different about his writing style.
Yeah,
in a good way.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's something you just said sparked an idea in my mind that I was going to add, and I've completely lost it. But overall, his writing style is great. The delivery is great. Oh, what I was kind of going to say is, when you put together his world building, the characters, the plot, like everything that's going on, it feels like the perfect size. For a 545-page book with his style of writing, there was the perfect amount of intrigue, world building, character development, magic system, like learning the magic system. There was just a perfect combination of everything. This book, to me, did not need to be a page longer or a page shorter.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So that being said, it'd be a huge recommendation for me for anyone who enjoys fantasy or wants to get into it. And I will also say, just as and this isn't really a huge connection, but there's just kind of a little bit of a connection. So again, someone who really enjoys reading history, the setting of this world, obviously it's got a magic system, but outside of the magic system, like the technology level and everything, it's like, what, Civil War era, would you say?
Yeah, Civil War. I mean, you kind of get French Revolution vibes, because there's some guillotining happening.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so maybe it's more Revolutionary era. That would actually,
like
that would,
right around the 1800s, like, you know, turn of the 17s into 18s.
Right. So I really enjoyed that as well. I mean, you have a magic system in a world that has guns, which for me, usually just the idea of that is a bit of a turnoff for me, actually. Like, I don't like there being an equalizer like guns in a magic system world. Like, I would rather usually see like swords and the magic used, maybe a staff here and there, maybe a couple other, you know, cool weapons. But when you start getting into guns and things like that, like firepower, I don't know, something for me, just the idea of it I don't like as much. But again, I love this book, and I thought it was perfect, and it fits with the magic system as well. This magic system wouldn't exist if it weren't at that technological point. But overall, the writing was great. It's very engaging. I couldn't put it down. I read it in just a few days. And yeah, I thought it was great. So again, staying out of spoilers, magic system, what would you rate the magic system? Like, on any scale you prefer, how would you compare it to other magic systems?
So
just the enjoyability and
spoiler,
like how it's fleshed out.
There's multiple magic systems in this. So one of the magic systems I really like. And then the other ones I still like, but I don't want to say it's a down for me, because it's really not. It's just I don't like it as much as the other aspects of the book. But like essentially, and again, I don't think breaking down like this is a spoiler, but you have powder mages who kind of do something with gunpowder, and then you have other people who are more like your traditional, seemingly like magician, sorceress, yeah, type of people.
Yeah.
And I didn't like them as much. I think it's going to end up later. I think I'm going to probably like it more because it'll probably add into next books. But yeah, the magic system, especially the powder mage stuff, dude, is so cool, dude. I mean, not that we're like pro drugs on this because we're definitely not. Don't do drugs, but there's just a wild like Peaky Blinders almost like vibe of like how they're ripping cigs all the time. Like they're not necessarily ripping cigs, but just the way they use gunpowder. It like they're definitely abusing it, and it should not be done, and they know it shouldn't. But it's just like it gives you this hardened like just cool. I mean, vibe.
Gives it a different edge and makes it deepens the character development a lot as well for a couple of characters.
I agree, but it's also not overpowered. Like these guys are super powerful, obviously, but you definitely are going to learn about weaknesses, and then I mean, there's other groups that are way more powerful. So it does feel like when you said a good size, like I feel like the problems in this book are the perfect size. They're not these like Thanos level problems, and maybe there is one like coming. But as far as like what's going on in the book,
I definitely think there's one coming. Yeah,
but they're all tangible, and I kind of sometimes I think books do too much. Like they try and go too high too fast, because they're trying to like build these stakes up so quickly. Whereas this book, the stakes are still matter, but I don't know, like because there's so many different POVs, because there's probably 5? I mean, there's a decent amount of POVs, and some of them they're dealing with different problems, and they're all like kind of building to this underlying problem. But anyway, I just think that it is like a good sized problem that we're going to build to something else instead of like just introducing some huge problem. I don't know. It really felt well planned out and not like, I don't know, because I don't know, in a weird way, like I don't mind like an average problem, and like a good story about an average problem. So anyway.
Right. Yeah, it feels pretty grounded for being in a fantasy world, but there's also a lingering, and there's a culmination point at the end that will lead into the rest of the series, but there is a lingering bigger problem, but this first book is a little more isolated and, like you said, more tangible. But he just does it so well, man, and he's got me very excited to continue in this series. So
yeah,
it's a big recommendation for me. To say one kind of last aspect of it, non-spoilery, the character development, in my opinion, is really good for a couple characters in particular. So there's no reason not to read this.
That's why I would recommend it. It's just because if you like fantasy and you're looking for something that's just different, but you still obviously love fantasy elements, I mean, this one just is very unique. So you kind of get a different fix in a way.
Right. So we would both highly recommend this book if you haven't read it. It is for anyone who loves fantasy. Even if you don't, I think this would be a pretty good read regardless. Just because, again, it's really well written, and that's really, for me, all that it comes down to. I feel like I could read about just about anything if the writing is done well. And for me, again, this is the first McClellan book I've read. He knocked it out of the park with this first book in the Powder Mage series. So that being said, you got anything non-spoilery to say to those who may have not read it?
No, read it though. It's good.
Full spoilers ahead for Promise of Blood. So let's get into it, dude. I mean, biggest moment for you, just right out the gate. What's the biggest moment? What sticks out to you?
Biggest moment. I mean, Tannel's not dead. Obviously, right? Because, I mean, in the epilogue, he's
like in a coma.
Okay, yeah. I feel like something else also huge happens. I know...
Well, before he goes out, I mean, he shoots Kresimir.
Yeah, but does he die?
I mean, so Bo, the end of the book is Bo saying, you can't kill a god, like something along those lines.
Dude, that was a hard part, dude, where he's like, I killed a god. Like in his mind, he's like thinking before he like kind of blacks out. I don't want to say that part was choppy for me, but it felt like that part escalated very quick because you're going back and forth like those fast. POVs. Yeah. And in a weird way, man, Tannel's POVs were like my favorite until like I don't know like how I don't know when it was. I don't know if it's when he went to go get Bo or whatever, but it was still fascinating. But then I was kind of more intrigued on Adamat and like his like research of like finding out who it was, and then I mean, again, all of the POVs I thought were fascinating, but like I liked them all. I didn't not like any of them, but I don't know. I think I liked the other ones more towards the end for some reason. I was just more interested in it being. I can't say like it was a huge gotcha when you find out it's the priest guy. I should know his name.
Right, yeah, that wasn't Charlemund. Yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't a huge shock.
Yeah, I don't think that was a big gotcha for me, but I mean, I just like, I don't know. I was wanting more of Adamat. I mean, dude, when I kind of got like spooked, bro, when Adamat opened or he goes to his house and he like hands him a box, dude, and it's his like son's finger, and I'm like,
yeah, that was
bro,
wild.
that's messed up.
That's dark.
So those moments got me. What was yours?
Definitely when the biggest one for me was Taniel in the end shooting Kresimir, because I did not see that coming, that this guy would show up and immediately get shot twice in the face, or no, once through the eye, once in the chest. I just thought that was
From like 6 miles away or something ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like 6 miles away. I just thought that was a great, like, surprising subversion of expectations, if you will. That gets used and abused too much in books and film and stuff nowadays, the old subversion, but I thought it was done so well there, because you're kind of thinking this guy's going to show up, and you're towards the end of the book, you're like, this guy's going to show up and just decimate things. We're going to see something crazy, and then it's going to end.
It's
but
like
no,
what
he gets shot.
does to
Right, yeah. I thought something like Leak Reef is showing up was going to happen, and it did not.
or
so I really enjoyed that
Orna
scene.
or whatever. Just,
Yeah,
I'm back,
exactly.
psych.
Yeah. I also really liked the scene where Tomas is in that like secret thing that only his council members know about, and that Warden shows up and attacks him while he's not armed. I love that scene, man. It felt
That
like
was a good
Kaladin
scene.
fighting the Pursuer at the end of
Yeah.
Rhythm of War, like when he did
Tomas
not
is such
have
a good
his
character.
skills. Yeah, man.
That
So
was
that
a
really
good
stuck out.
scene.
So
So was, dude, I liked, which I mean, I feel like everyone probably likes him, but Tomas is like second hand,
his Olim.
yeah. I like
Yeah, I
him.
liked Olim a lot.
There's a lot of moments with him that I really like. Kind of feel bad for him, dude, that he's, I mean, what's her face's deal? The girl,
Neela, the one
that
that
her
Olim
name?
courts.
yeah, and then, she's
So
like,
she
"Nah,
was.
I'm
You remember?
out." I know, but dude,
She was.
why is she so like into like? I mean, there's no way she hasn't been wronged. If she's a servant of these people, like, come on, like she's
Like,
been
what
a
are you
servant for
saying?
them. Like why is she still so supportive of this guy? And especially when she finds out that he didn't kill him, like he didn't kill the boy. Tomas.
So you're
kept
saying
him
like,
alive.
why was she so mad? Like after she found out that Tomas did not kill Jacob.
Well, it just seems like she never was gonna let it go, even when I don't know. That was what I couldn't understand. Like her loyalties felt weak. I don't know why.
think-
I kind of get it, but because she looked after him and whatnot. But
Yeah, I think it was just
No one
that.
else cared.
I think that she saw and believed that Tomas was not the guy that she had previously perceived him to be, but she still wanted to be able to she still wanted to take care of Jacob. She didn't want it to be left up to him just ending up on some farm that she didn't know about. That was the vibe that I got, that even though she didn't see Thomas as bad as she had before, she still wanted to be the one to
I'm
raise
so
Jacob.
unsure on how that storyline is gonna play out, because that's like that to me is like the Ghost Bloods of this.
That's
like,
the dark horse
yeah,
of the
dude,
story.
they're like, what do they have going on?
Yeah.
in their whole little crew.
And dude, I'm not going to say it right now, but remind me when we get done to say the mistake I made in reading the other book we're reading now and thinking that I was reading about a Promise of Blood character. It was so funny. But yeah. So those are some parts we really enjoyed. So let's go back to the beginning. So to lay the groundwork, we're starting out with Tomas, who is I guess you would say the main character. I mean, he's the guy on the cover of the books. So
yeah,
main character Tomas, it's Tamas, so I was saying Tomas. It may just be
Yeah,
Thomas or
sounds right.
Tamus. Maybe it's Tamus or Tamas. He is essentially like, I mean, dude, I saw him straight up as like a Ulysses S. Grant Dalinar type character,
Yeah.
like that just comes in and he's the GOAT, and he overthrows the king. He pulls a Napoleon, takes over the government in Adro, and essentially his goals seem to, well, I should say his outward goals are that he wants to free the people of the monarchy, essentially, and like make society better for everybody. But there's also the inward motivation of his wife having been beheaded at the hands of, and this, maybe I'm misremembering, but at the hands of another person. But I think the problem is that the king of his place was going to allow those people, the Kez, to come in and have like free reign and all this kind of stuff. So it was just a betrayal for him in a personal way.
In the lake, and the guy who kidnaps him.
Yeah, and that guy works for the Kez, which is a different nation from Adro. But the king of Adro that Tomas overthrew was going to basically buddy up with the Kez. And so Tomas decided to overthrow him and rid the people of the monarchy. So he's got a son, Taniel. They call him Taniel Two-Shot because he can use his powder mage skills to shoot 2 bullets at once. And he's really proficient at doing that kind of thing. And I'm just running through the characters real quick. We have Adamat that you already mentioned. He is a Nact, which I should go back and say. Tomas and Taniel are both powder mages. Taniel is called a Marked. Now, I don't know if you remember, but I don't know if a Marked is just another word for a powder mage, but I didn't hear all of them get called that. So I don't know really what Marked necessarily means. I may have kind of missed that.
Derogatory term that the what are the people who wear gloves called? Like the sorcerer, like what's bow? They're like called something. They're the ones who can like touch they can like, touch the source or whatever they're doing.
Touch the ether or whatever the else. They can touch the
I feel like they were the ones calling them Marked. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, it may have been. Yeah, because they didn't like them. The sorcerers did not like the powder mages.
They like.
And we'll just call them that because we can't remember.
But
so Tomas and sorry.
No. Yeah, no. You keep going. Yeah, they're powder mages.
Tomas and Taniel are powder mages. Taniel is Tomas's son. Adamat is what's called a Nact, and a Nact in this world is essentially a person that just has one. Sometimes magical, sometimes just a normal human trait that's just exponentially higher. So an example of a Nact for Adamat is his knack is that he doesn't ever forget anything. He has a perfect memory. So that's something that like is somewhat could be seen as realistic, but in this world it's a thing from fantastical sources or magic.
That was one of my favorite, like most simple.
I liked it too.
It's so simple yet like it does so well because he. Like with Olam never having to sleep. Like there's just so many little things to where it's like that's such a cool touch to where you're not having to do too much with it.
Right. So that's Adamat. He's an investigator because he never forgets anything. That makes complete sense. Then we have Neela that we talked about. She was the nursemaid or whatever you would call it for the king who was overthrown for that king's son, Jacob. And then we have Kapoel. Yeah, she's referred to as a savage.
Dark horse.
Oh, dude, she's low key the goat. I mean, she's high key the goat of this book.
Yeah, she is.
But her story starting out is kind of low key. She is just what's referred to repeatedly as a savage. She's a savage girl, and you get the vibe that she's like. Well, I guess she says later she's 19, so she's like a young savage girl that essentially works for Taniel. I don't know what the relationship is exactly. Like if she's like an indentured servant or if he's. Like, I don't really know what the vibe is there. We kept saying that
she owes him his life. Like, because that's what I'm excited for.
That's right. He saved her. That's right.
The next trilogy afterwards is about, like, a backstory of where he was at. Because he was out in the wilderness out there on, like, some side quest.
Yeah, Fatrista or whatever it was. So that's his little savage. That good point. I'm glad you remembered that. The reason she sticks with him is because he saved her life, and now she wants to protect him. Then we have Bourbador. Oh, privileged. They're called privileged. That's what the sorcerers in this world are. Bourbador is a sorcerer that is Taniel's closest like childhood friend. They grew up together. They're boys. And he's like a really powerful, privileged person. A couple other smaller characters are Olim that we mentioned, who is Tomas's bodyguard. He is a Nact who doesn't need to sleep. Then we also have Sue Smith, who is Adamat's bodyguard. He's not a Nact or anything, but he's a boxer, and I really liked his character as well. We have Julene, who is a privilege that works for Tomas in the beginning of the book. She turns out to be a major problem. And then who else do we have? We have the council. You've got your standard like government people. You've got the guy who's the master of coin, the master of
Dude, the union.
I just lost it.
The union head leader.
Yeah, you got the union guy. Then you got the church guy. He's essentially the pope or whatever.
You have the girl.
So yeah, that's kind of your base.
The Adams, whatever the mercenary.
Yep, the mercenaries. Yep. She's important as well. So yeah, that kind of sets the scene for what's going on essentially.
Dude, something I forgot. I just remembered. That's kind of wild. This is jumping around, but dude, what's his face is Tomas's brother-in-law. The dude, like it says it in the epilogue.
Gravel?
The guy who's like the drunk, yeah. Which is kind of like,
Gavril?
okay. Gavril,
yeah. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah, so that's another character. He's like the leader of the Mountain Watch, which essentially, for me, was a complete copy and paste of the Night's Watch in Game of Thrones, for sure. Except instead of them like, trying to keep out, ice zombies, they're just trying to defend, whatever, their country.
Literally anything, yeah.
So yeah, that's essentially what we've got going on here. So one thing I really, really liked about this was, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this, like to go back to what you were saying. So with the powder mages, with Tomas and Taniel, so essentially what they do is they're essentially doing what the characters do in that movie Wanted with Angelina Jolie, where they can curve bullets. They're essentially doing that, but it's much cooler. It's not a very good movie, but they're doing that, but it's just a much cooler version of it. That like it's just much cooler. But the whole thing that you were referring to, and I don't know if we probably shouldn't say the actual word. I'm sure. Yeah, he's snorting that soft or that white girl, as some may call it, essentially. It's actually that black girl in this because it's gunpowder, so it's a little different. So yeah, he's got like, I just love the element of, so the magic system requires you to do something that could end up being like very dangerous for you, which is a kind of a trope in some magic systems that there's a give and take, it costs something. But this one can have a health problem, but it's just a different vein of it being an addiction thing. So if you abuse the way that you use your power, you can end up essentially being a crackhead. And I thought that was a really cool element to this story.
It is. It just adds a nice little touch, dude. Him like breaking out the can and just hitting a line off the back of his hand. And then everyone around him looking at him like,
they're like, dang, dude,
you gotta stop.
You don't need that much gunpowder.
I would like to know
right now.
I would like to know more about, like, he briefly mentions it, McClellan does a couple times, like with Tomas and with Tano mainly, but where there's like a word for it when you do too much and like you don't give your body enough time to rest.
I think it was like powder blind or something like that.
Yeah. So
yeah, powder blind.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It kind of gives the implication that you could maybe lose. If you do too much, maybe you lose your power or something. Is that?
I'm not really sure. It might have been that, or like just while you're in that state, you don't have your power. Or maybe it's a more permanent thing. But I'm not totally sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The only thing, dude, I want to know is where did the one girl go? The one girl they start off. So it starts off with Tano and the girl who ends up being a problem,
Cophole.
Well, no, she's already with him.
Oh, Julene.
Like Julene, and they're chasing after that one privileged, and then she ends up kind of being chill.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of lost where she went. Is she?
Yeah. So that's
gonna show back up. You think like?
Oh, I'm sure. So, and that's a good thing to bring up. So, like the first arc of the book is Tomas is taken over. Like he does that in the first, moments of the book. Essentially, he's taken over. They kill the king, execute a bunch of nobles, and there's this one privilege. They killed all of them except one. There's this one girl still running around, causing problems, wreaking havoc. Yeah, and essentially what that arc culminates to, because he sends Taniel along with a privileged Julene, who you don't know is a privileged at the time. You don't realize that until a little bit later.
I thought you knew she was a privileged. But you should know that she was one of those, like, that special, like, sect.
Oh, you just didn't know she was a Prady. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's what Rosalia is. So she actually turns out she's not a normal privileged. She's like an old, like ancient original, which reminded me of like it's akin to the original Allomancers in the Mistborn world that were much more powerful, like when Elend ate that thing. So I like that aspect of like the power being.
Did you like her being able to change into like an whatever that was?
Dude, I'm sure it was much cooler the way you were meant to. You're talking about Julene transforming into like a lion with like rooster hands or chicken hands or something. Dude, I pictured something weird. I pictured something really weird that I don't think was meant to be what you pictured. I just pictured something kind of goofy looking.
Yeah, I didn't love that. That was one of the few things I didn't love, and I think I knew what he was trying to go for. He's trying to go for, I feel like someone that's just beyond time, an immortal being who like doesn't really care about a human form kind of thing. Yeah. But so I mean I get it, but I don't know, dude. That was one of the few. There was something else, dude. I'll think of it here in a second that I didn't like. But that,
and we also forgot
really
about
the
a
only thing.
Really important character that we didn't mention. Mihaly, the chef.
Oh, dude, he is definitely also going to be a problem. It's also such a funny like character arc to have of like something so goofy, but like at the same time, like it does make sense as to like how that could be such a huge like motivator. Because I mean, it's always about resources at the end of the day. These people. I mean, literally like what we just were talking about with Napoleon, like the whole reason why he fails is because he doesn't have resources when he goes to Russia. Yeah. So, like, can you imagine if he would have had a Mihaly out there where he just has unlimited food? I mean, bro,
he's literally pulling a Jesus of Nazareth and turning 5 loaves of bread into 5,000, like consistently. But he's not just doing it with loaves of bread and fish. Yeah, he's making like exquisite meals for people. And he immediately reveals himself to be Ado or Adam, Adom, who was supposedly the god brother of Kresimir, and Kresimir is like the god that is worshipped like in this world essentially, or in this nation. Maybe it's not all nations, but
I hope it doesn't get in a weird way. I kind of hope it stays low key. Yeah,
I think to a degree it probably will, because if you think about a powder mage,
like a Hunger of Gods like level of like person. Like,
where the gods start like running things, and it's just
and they're
your POV characters are the small fries.
Immortal. Yeah, I mean, I need him to die, like how Kresimir dies immediately. Like I hope he is actually kind of dead.
I don't think he's actually dead.
I don't think he is either, but I hope he's like severely wounded, and like you can, just,
like it. Yeah,
I like,
but I do like that Mihaly is there, and he's not like a proper foil to Kresimir. He's not this guy that's going to wreak havoc and destroy and start wars. He's like the opposite. Like he provides and that kind of thing. So I like him being an opposite to his brother. I think that it's going to be like a Adam versus Kresimir in a sense, but like a proxy war of them. The same way that Mihaly's not going to fight. Like you said, maybe Kresimir's injured and he can't actually physically do it. So it's going to be like
I still don't understand his motivation of why he cares. Like why does bringing him back matter? Because I know they have to. It's like what, the 9 realms or something, and like there always has to. I don't know. There was like the lore of, because that's what
has to be this
main
one
thing
bloodline.
Adamat was talking of, like going to find was that one secret, or because what were they saying? They were all saying something before
they were all saying
Kresimir's
you
promise.
Can't break Kresimir's promise, which his promise turned out to be that if anyone else, like if the bloodlines that he promised this to did not essentially sit the throne at any point, he could be summoned and he would come back and wreak havoc and like start everything over with those lines back in power. So it's apparently, you get the vibe that he doesn't even want to do it, that like he would be reluctant to come back, that he's probably completely forgotten about this world. That's the vibe you get from some people that, like, I think you either get that from Rosalia or someone else that you would expect to know that kind of information. And so you get the vibe that he would be reluctant to do it and wouldn't want to have to come back, but because he promised it, like it's kind of like an oath thing that has to be upheld, so he has to come back if summoned.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's really all there is to it, which maybe there's more. Maybe that story's a front, In
a weird way, I just don't like that arc as much as I like the in the dark of night, these like the barber brother guys like assassinating people. Like, I don't know. Like, I know it's definitely a lesser problem. But I like the in the shadows stuff, dude. There's a lot of in the shadows, like, oh, dude, who are these mysterious people that just all of a sudden know all this information about people and seem like they just, essentially it's Adamat's arc, but it's combined with Tomas's arc, obviously, because these are people that like want his demise too, but not for the same reasons. Maybe it seems like there's different reasons for it. Maybe not just for like this whole Kresmir thing.
Yeah.
So that I'm all about the little smokes and mirrors stuff of these people that you just don't know about that are showing up in your house, like with your child's left forefinger.
Yeah, and that's Lord Vitas. He ends up Adamat has like a debt that he owes to this other guy named Pelagi or something. Lord Vitas comes in, kills Pelagi, so he now owns that debt. But he also like threatens at the safety of Adamat's family, and he asks Adamat to report everything, like all his comings and goings and conversations with Tomas, any information he has about Tomas.
Tomas said he was like gonna kill him or something, right? Because
at the end he was like unsure of what to do. Yeah, because Adamat admits it to him in the very end. And the story ends with Lord Vitas running off with Jacob, with the slain king's
and with the girl
son. Yeah, and Neela. But so I thought that was pretty cool. All that stuff we just talked about. I really liked in the end, and we're kind of just going. We do this every time we're discussing a fantasy book. We just jump around. So Ka Pol, the Savage. Yeah. So Rosalia the Privileged, when you first get words from her, she is fearful of Ka Pol. She's like looking around for, wondering where she is because she doesn't want to fight her. And you don't really know that much about Ka Pol. She's not done anything that crazy as of yet.
She doesn't talk. You think she's mute for the whole book, and then she says words.
Yeah, she's a mute the whole book until Wait, does she say words? No, dude. I think you're mixing her up with somebody else, and I've already read that part in that other book, so you're good,
dude. Are we sure?
Mixing her up. I'm pretty sure, dude.
I think you might be.
If
right
she
too.
did,
I don't know why I thought she. Maybe she didn't. Maybe you're right.
I honestly can't remember, but that's so funny that there's such a parallel there that I'm actually confused now too.
Yeah, I can't remember, but anyway, but she
I'm
definitely
really
she definitely loves Tannel. And it is kind of an interesting switch that happens. Like there's a flip that switches very fast from where Tannel never looks at her other than a child, and then all of a sudden he's like not seeing a child at all anymore.
Well, I think it's when he finds out that she's 19, that she's older.
I know, and then he's always like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, I noticed her pants were fitting a little tighter than normal or something. I'm like, dang, Tannel, okay, son.
Like, dude, chill out. You just found out that she's of age, bro. Chill out.
I thought she was 14, dude. Oh, my God.
Geez, that is rough.
That is rough.
But, so Ka Pol, whatever it is, she does this thing with dolls. Like, she's like,
some voodoo
she's got voodoo dolls. And then you see that Julene is also fearful of her, and then somebody else, I think like Bo, the other privilege that's friends with Taniel, he says something about her, but in the end, dude, she massacres like so many privilege, so many people that are like the most powerful people in the world. Yeah, just start stomping on them, lighting them on fire, and all this stuff, and she saves Taniel they're both essentially in comas, but she saves him from death. Otherwise,
she also creates those little bullets that are able to like go through their magic.
That's right. She creates those red line bullets. Yeah.
I will say too. I guess we've kind of mentioned it. I mean, this book is so fast paced to where a chapter goes by and it's like a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not.
It does do that,
which I liked because it keeps you going. But
yeah.
There's definitely not like a lot of that lull time for like world building. He does a good job of building the world while stuff is just popping off. So, but yeah, Ka Pol is definitely the most interesting, I think, character.
Yeah, she was at the end of the day, she's the one I'm most interested in. She's like the Zeth of this story for me.
Especially since she literally can't talk, and I'm assuming, dude, she can't talk still. But I don't know, dude. Now I'm doubting myself. I don't know why I feel like she like yells his name or something. He's like, "Wait, what?" But I maybe not.
But
dude.
that literally
She's always doing
happens.
hand signs.
That literally happens in the other
I
book that
know,
we're
that's
reading.
the only
Like that
reason
exact
why
thing you're saying.
Yeah.
Like I just read about it today. That's so funny, man.
Yeah, I think I might be mistaken. Anyway.
So she's definitely one I'm most interested in the end, but throughout the book, my favorite was definitely Tomas, and his story is kind of going a different way. The thing that happens with Julene, Taniel, Cophole, Bo, that's over at near the Mountain Watch thing. They have their own battle while the Kez are trying to invade Adro. So that's where that goes down, and that's where Kresimir returns in the end, and then Taniel shoots him. But Tomas is back in Adro trying to figure out who the traitor on his council is, and he's dealing with the Mihaly thing. And it turns out that the traitor on his council is the Doisel, whatever the heck that word is.
Yeah.
He's essentially the Pope. Or not the Pope. He's probably more like a cardinal or something, but he's Charlemagne. He ends up being the traitor, and it turns out that his main... Like, he still needed to kill Tomas, I believe, but his main goal was also just to get rid of Mihaly, the guy who was feeding everybody and claimed to be Adam. Like, he had orders from, like, above him, Charlemagne did, to kill that guy. And we don't really fully understand why, other than he claims to be a god, and I guess the church wouldn't like that. But there seems to be more to it than that.
Does he make it out alive?
Yeah. Mihaly?
No. The
Charlemagne's? No, he dies.
He gets killed.
No, they kill him at the end. Him and that guy, the guy that was supposed to get him out of there on the carriage that you get a little bit of info from earlier in the book, he dies. He falls from getting pushed out of the carriage.
Dude,
he breaks his neck.
fall and breaks his neck, and that's really a
and
tough
he's
way
been
to
working a job he hates in a horrible scenario for years so that he can
his
marry the
daughter
girl
or
he
whatever,
loves.
Yeah, his
And he gets
niece or
pushed out of the
something.
carriage and dies.
I mean, especially when he dies like that,
Not
and
his
then
own
you have
niece.
certain people absolutely getting diced up and they survive. I mean, that is just tough, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
One of the other moments I really liked was, which was definitely like a loop. It's when Tomas gets kidnapped in the woods on the hunt.
Oh,
and at
yeah,
first
yeah,
you
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's the one guy, and then really it's him trying to disguise it to get him away and help. And I mean, obviously he gets killed for that in an attempt to save him, but. And then also, I mean, it's a little bit forward when Tomas, or I guess it's more, is it Tomas that figures it out, or is it Adamat? I can't remember who it is that figures it out, that essentially the guy that, or no, I guess he knew the whole time because What's-His-Face told him. And he, Tomas knew. The guy who, from the mercenary group, tells him, no, this is the guy who's sleeping with Lady...
Yes.
When
it's the younger one. So
something.
there's a guy in the Wings of Adam who, that's what you're talking about. The two guys that are in the Wings of Adam, one of them ends up being good. It's the younger one, and he ends up killing the traitor in Tomas's office.
Yeah, I like that.
So
scene
the
where
traitor
he has him behind the little deal, and
has him behind the little changing thing, and so that was good. Yeah, the Wings of Adam are cool. It's like a mercenary group under, what's her name, Wentzslav or something like that.
Yeah, Lady something.
And she's like an older, like adult woman, and this Barat guy is like 20 years old, and she's sleeping with him, but he turns out to be a traitor, and he tries to kill Tomas in the woods or something like that. He fails because another guy in the Wings of Adam like warns Tomas of what's going on. He gets killed.
By kidnapping him. By attempting
he
to
kidnaps
act
him
like
just
he's
to
the
be able
bad
to
guy.
tell him what's going on. Yeah.
Which is a real
but
G move on his part, because
yeah, that was wild. But yeah, you don't really know much about like what all their goals are. There's just several things. Obviously, it's the first book in a trilogy. It has good closure for me. Like, it ends really well. Like I said, I wouldn't add or take away from this book at all. But there's definitely a lot of things that make you want to come back to the rest of the series because, you know, most things are just in their
he's building
foundational
for sure.
form.
And I'm curious. I mean, he's really set up a good stage to continue this with. So, and it was a fast read too. So, I mean,
it was.
I mean, I'm hyped to get on to the next one, regardless of what happens. But
me too.
Ends on kind of a cliffhanger too, obviously. So,
yeah. So, you know, just some fun questions that I ask sometimes. Who in the next book? Whose storyline are you most interested in, and who do you least want to see die in the next book?
Least?
And you can't say Tomas because we already know he's on the cover of all three books, so, I mean, he's not dying.
Is he really? I guess I haven't
He's on
noticed.
the cover of all three. Sorry to spoil that for you.
Spoiler. Dude, Adamat honestly is the one I'm still most intrigued by. I like his character a lot, dude. Especially because he isn't like OP. So like he actually really does have to do some thinking behind stuff. He has to be prepared. He has to notice like the elements around him to try and have like a drop on what's happening. So it's like when he opens up his door and he like smells something's off and he just kind of has to use his intuition. I like that. I would hate to see him die, dude. But he is one of those guys. The guy who's dying, I think, first is Olim, which is going to be sad because I like him a lot. But I can see, really sad. I got a feeling he's going to die. Because, dude, the other guy who is even more minor than him, who gets absolutely glocked as they're trying to pull up on the Claremonds, or is that his name? The dude, they're trying to like go Charlemagne's. They're trying to go up on him, and he gets shot and killed. The guy who like wants to be beside Tomas at all times.
The other,
but he makes him like train and like find. Yes, because he was like a good, like you could tell, so fast, just an honorable guy, and just gets absolutely shot and killed. But as far as people I don't want to see die, obviously Cal Paul dies, and I mean,
she can't die.
She literally cannot die. I think Bo is probably going to die. And we didn't even talk about that whole string of, like, Tannel getting sent to kill Bo.
Dude.
And
him having the necklaces.
Yeah, so eventually he's going to have to try and kill Tomas. Unless they can figure out a way to break that.
That was actually pretty cool. So all the privileged have to wear this pendant, essentially, that... It's a way of like keeping Kresimmir's promise like in line, that if the king is ever killed, all the privileged are compelled to avenge him. So that was pretty sick. So he starts by the end of the book, when Tomas is talking to him, he's like weak and frail because it'll kill you if you don't do it. So he's already getting weak from not having tried to kill Tomas.
I think he's gonna probably kill himself, honestly. He's going to go on like a valiant effort, but I think he's going to go in and
like a mercy
try
killing,
and do
like they're going to agree.
Well, I think they're going to send him on like a suicide mission so that he can at least wipe some people out, and then it doesn't matter if he dies. I mean, it does, but you know what I mean.
But he's gonna die
I don't know what that setting looks like for that. But I think this next book is going to have some other characters that we don't know of that come about that are going to like either be a POV character or like become very important. Because I think there's just still so much that we don't know.
Right. And I think for me, I mean, like you said, like we've said, Kapol is the most interesting character, but I don't know if she's somebody. I don't think she would be someone we get a POV from, because it would probably reveal too much, like as far as the what kind of sorceress she is, because she's obviously like she seems like she's a Prady, which are the ancient people, but she also is a young girl, so it would seem like that's not possible.
Yeah, she's a whole different.
But who knows?
Thing, I feel like we're about to find out, dude. There's going to be some. I feel like we just don't know everything yet. Obviously, like with magic system wise, like I think there's just a whole nother.
But I'm looking forward to hopefully. Like it seems like Taniel's love interest is probably going to end up being Kapol, but I am interested in seeing more of the. Yeah, so the book starts, which I don't know if you had this in your version or whatever way you read it, but at the end of the book, in the extras, there is a prologue that was taken out, and it's just a quick like 3-page story of Taniel showing up at that guy's house that his fiance is cheating on him with, and like stabbing him to the wall on his shoulder and putting the ring like on the knife. He didn't kill him; he just stabbed him to the wall to the point that he's gonna have to be cut down. And Vlora, his fiance, was like there. And then in the book, when we see her, she like starts cry. Like when she sees Taniel for the first time in the book, she just cries and asks for forgiveness. So I feel like there's something still there, because she's like high up in the army. She's a powder mage. Tomas like keeps her like in important positions, so she's definitely going to be around, I would imagine. But who knows? Maybe she ends up getting killed in some like emotional moment for Taniel that kind of closes that off. But
I think Adamat's bodyguard. I mean, these are all minor characters that are just on the chopping block. And these are good characters, but like those are the guys who get got first, you know. So Unless
Who knows, man? Maybe it ends up being Taniel, bro. Can you imagine? Like that would be a
He gets
huge
killed.
character thing for Tomas.
Yeah.
And I agree
I
with
could
you. I
see it,
really
dude.
like
I
that
really could
your
see
main
it.
character is. I mean, this is like a 40, 45-year-old man, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like
If
that it's an
not
older
50,
guy that
yeah.
has a lot
I
of
love
experience, and he has a son to lose. He's already lost his wife, so that would be kind of a crazy character.
I think
thing
his
for him.
brother-in-law,
Who knows?
the
Gavril.
Tower Gavril, I think he might move up the pecking order here soon of character importance.
Yeah, he might as well. Yeah.
So, but dude, I love.
Overall,
it.
I'm
It was a
really
great
excited to read this second book. I don't know if we're missing anything as far as things that happen, but I feel like we pretty much covered it in a very scatterbrained way. I'm sure there's a couple
Yeah.
things we're missing, but
book. Dude, I don't ever hear anyone
I
talk
really
about
enjoyed
this
it,
book.
man.
Have you ever?
I
seen
don't
a
really hear
video
anything.
on- yeah, none of the big players seem to
I
be.
mean, I haven't
talking
looked
about
really
this.
hard, but
True.
I haven't ever. It's definitely not one of the ones that you see at the forefront of like BookTube and big
Top
fantasy
lists.
series. Which I thought it was newer, so it didn't surprise me. But it being 10 years old, it actually kind of does surprise me a little more.
Yeah.
But Brian McClellan, he's got another series that I think is more popular than this, doesn't he?
Well, he has another series after this in the same world.
But I thought he had a different series outside of both. Oh, it's In the Shadow of Lightning. That one's actually more recent. That's right.
Yeah, that one's not as good, dude. It's good, but it's just not as good.
Yeah, so I guess this is his
Yeah,
main
it's
stuff.
of Gods of
world,
Blood
but-
and Powder.
Yeah,
Oh, there's
the
a Powder
second
Mage
series,
1
the second
point.
trilogy.
Have you read the
Oh yeah, dude, there's all these little Powder Mage .2s and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, dude. See, this is going to be cool to get into. I didn't realize all that.
Yeah,
realize
I'm
he
excited
got
to
deep.
see all this stuff that he's got going on in this world. Because there's all the way up to a .5, and then there's a 1.5. No, there's a 0.7, dude. Point 0.8.
3, 4. Oh, yeah,
He's got
there's a
all
lot.
kinds of little
Short
books in here,
stories.
and these are like,
We'll have to do these at the end of the year, man, when we're trying to catch up.
yeah. I mean, dude, one of these, the 0.6 is 15 pages long.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I mean, they're not even books. They're like, and this one takes place 8 years before the events of Promise of Blood. Oh yeah, because it's
Dude,
0.6. So
0.8?
yeah,
0.8 sounds sick, dude. Tannel two-shot his Powder Mage with the Tristan Ghost Irregulars, a band of volunteers who have made a name for themselves fighting the Fastrian Revolution. Okay, so he already has some stuff out, because that's like what
Yeah.
I've been wanting to.
I mean,
like
and that
know
one's
more
90
about.
pages, so I guess they fluctuate in length. That one's a little longer. Yeah, I would definitely
didn't
like to read
realize.
these, especially if we get towards the end of the year and we're not quite on pace,
dude,
which I
get
feel
8
like we
books
will
in.
be with what all we're planning to do. But either way, it'll be nice to check those out too. So I think that's pretty much it. Anything else you'd say about Promise of Blood?
Nothing, brother. I loved it.
Cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. So we'll at some point be getting back to this series. So be on the lookout for it. You will see a lot of other different book series reviews coming out. We're getting into several different series here in the next couple months. So we will definitely get back to this series. So be on the lookout for, let's see, it's going to be the Crimson Campaign whenever that one comes out. And then the third one, the Autumn Republic. We'll get to them eventually. Let us know what you think about this book, where it ranks for you, how you liked it. If you haven't read it, check it out. That's it for It's Lit Book Reviews. We'll see you again in the next one. Goodbye.